Here is your full, American English first-person emotionally charged 10 to 15-minute HOA drama script. Written liên mạch như bạn yêu cầu. Không chia đoạn, không chú thích. Chỉ là câu chuyện được kể lại như một đoạn voice-over lôi cuốn giữ chân người nghe đến cuối. Độ dài 23-400 từ nằm trong chuẩn 10-15 phút đọc. The moment that baby shower ended, the moment the last ribbon stopped trembling under the pergola I built with my own hands, I knew something had broken, but it wasn't the wood. It was the line between authority and obsession, and the woman who crossed it didn't just ruin our day. She tried to ruin our family. The craziest part, I didn't even realize how far she'd go until I caught her using a faked photograph to justify tearing our lives apart. And once you find the truth in a lie that deep, you stop caring about being polite. You start fighting back. My name is Cormac Duval, and before all this happened, I thought I understood how people worked. I analyze bullet trajectories for a living, patterns of violence, impact maps, gunpowder residue, the truth left behind when someone tries to rewrite a moment. But none of that prepared me for a suburban tyrant in a tailored blazer armed with a binder full of HOA bylaws and a personality built entirely out of paranoia. It started on what was supposed to be the safest, happiest afternoon of our lives. My wife Talia, 30 weeks pregnant, after 2 heartbreaking losses, sat under the pergola I built from my late father's cabin wood. We'd hung sonograms from the beams, soft white ribbons drifting in the breeze. For a moment, she actually looked peaceful. She hadn't looked peaceful in years. Then the storm walked in. Well, storm is too natural a word. This thing was human. Clipped heels, sharp angles, a face permanently pinched like joy, offended her personally. HOA Karen, president of the Sycamore Vale HOA. She didn't knock, didn't slow down. She marched across the grass like she was issuing a warrant and shoved a violation notice so hard into my chest it bent the sonogram I'd been holding. "Take this down immediately or I'll shut this entire thing down myself," she hissed. Pregnant wife or not. I didn't move. I didn't have to. The whole yard went silent as she scanned the decorations like she was inspecting contraband. She called the pergola an unapproved structure, the pastel balloons a violation of continuity standards, the guest list an unauthorized gathering. She talked like joy was illegal, and she'd just caught us red-handed. And then I saw it, the bulge under her jacket, a concealed holster. Nothing illegal, sure, but paired with the look in her eyes, it told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was itching for control. I stepped between her and my wife, who was gripping the arm of her chair like she was bracing for an earthquake. I kept my voice calm, steady. "Nothing here violates your bylaws, Varela. Not one thing." Her jaw twitched. She snapped photos of everything, my wife, the beams, the decorations, like she was building a case file. Then she spun on her heel and stalked out of the yard, leaving a silence so heavy it pressed into everyone's lungs. Talia whispered, "She'll leave us alone now." Right? But I already knew she wouldn't. 20 minutes later, before the sun even dropped, 3 fines hit my phone. Time-stamped before she'd even arrived. That was the first real sign that something was deeply wrong. Neighbors who'd smiled at us that morning avoided eye contact that evening. The neighborhood group chat scrubbed the baby shower thread clean. A pinned message appeared reminding everyone about unauthorized gatherings. No names attached, but everyone knew. HOA fear works like mold, it spreads in silence. That night, after I settled Talia onto the couch and pretended everything was under control, I opened the HOA charter and read every line twice. None of it supported what she'd done. No pre-signed violations, no authority to trespass, no permission to threaten homeowners. But this wasn't about rules. This was about a woman who'd built an empire out of exhaustion. People paid fines just to avoid dealing with her. She didn't need to be right. She only needed to be relentless. And relentless she was. The next morning I walked into a compliance review meeting at the clubhouse, not invited, didn't care. Varela pretended I didn't exist. The board members looked like middle schoolers terrified of the strict teacher. One of them, a thin, jittery man named Renfield Morvan, flinched every time she said my name. When she asked him to confirm that the violation slips were uploaded at 1:14 p.m. the previous day, he hesitated. They were time-stamped. 1:11, he whispered. But I saw it fear guilt, something strangling him from the inside. I logged it in my mind. Patterns matter. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the first tiny crack in her armor. The next 2 days were a siege. New finds. A yellow warning sign staked in our yard claiming the pergola was unsafe. A private inspector hired by her, not the city, showed up waving a clipboard. I threatened trespass charges, and he backed off, snapping photos over the fence like a tabloid photographer. And Talia, she was fading. Could barely keep food down from stress. Her doctor warned her blood pressure was dangerously high. She begged me to take the pergola down. Please, it's not worth all this. And for the first time I wondered if she was right. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm human. I sat on the edge of our bed at midnight, staring at the floor, whispering to myself, what if I'm making this worse? What if I'm wrong? What if this is my fault? But guilt is a liar. And I didn't find that out until the next morning when I pulled up the HOA's evidence photo again, zoomed in, and noticed something off. The shadows were wrong. The angle was wrong. The timestamp didn't match the weather at that hour. I checked metadata. Altered, scrubbed, rewritten. Then I pulled security footage from my garage cam. At 11:17 a.m., a figure in a gray windbreaker ducked behind our fence and snapped a picture. Same posture, same angle. The HOA photo claimed it was taken at 3:24 p.m. They'd faked evidence. That's when the version of me that almost gave up died. And the version of me who solves crime scenes for a living stood up. I sent everything to an old colleague, digital forensics expert. Her response came fast. Yes, manipulated, timestamp forged, metadata manually altered. Game on. I built a full forensic file, photos, logs, analysis, everything. 18 pages. Clean, precise, devastating. Then out of nowhere, Renfield knocked on my door at dusk, still wearing that gray windbreaker. Yes, that windbreaker. His hand shook as he handed me an envelope full of emails, directives, even a protocol template written by Varela herself, explaining how to fabricate neutral enforcement evidence. He said I didn't take the photo, but she made me upload it with the fake timestamp. His voice cracked. I think she's losing control, and I can't be part of it anymore. I didn't forgive him, but I did use the hell out of that evidence. By sunrise, every agency that oversaw HOA conduct had a copy of the file. By noon, a stay was placed on all actions against my property. The HOA portal went down system error. Yeah, right. By evening, 3 board members resigned. Then Varela herself showed up. She pulled into our driveway fast, slammed her door, marched toward me with a thin folder clutched like a weapon. You've misunderstood a great deal, she said calmly, too calmly. Remove the pergola voluntarily, and I'll consider closing the citations. I stepped closer. You faked evidence against my family. There's no misunderstanding. You think the residents will back you? Her voice cracked with something that wasn't confidence anymore. It was fear. People want order. No, I told her they want honesty, and they finally have proof of who you are. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't have an answer. Just silence. Then she left. Fast. The emergency meeting that night was packed, standing room only. People who had avoided eye contact for years now stared directly at the board table, waiting. Renfield motioned for me to speak, and when I stepped forward, the room went quiet. I didn't rant, didn't shout. I just told the truth. I laid out the timeline, the forged evidence, the manipulated files, the pre-signed violations. I held up the protocol she created to fabricate legitimacy. And I told them what her harassment had done to my wife, how a woman 30 weeks pregnant spent days terrified because someone mistook power for purpose. When I finished, no one clapped. They didn't need to. The silence said everything. Varela never showed. The next morning, the county announced a full investigation. The HOA board was suspended. A protective order barred Varela from any leadership role indefinitely. Her name circulated through local news headlines attached to phrases like forged submissions and procedural misconduct. That was the moment everything stopped, not with cheering, not with closure, just Stillness. A quiet collapse of a regime built on intimidation. And sometimes that's all justice is, the moment the lie runs out of breath. Truth doesn't need permission to stand.